podcast that is focused both around our adventures and learnings for international physicians that are going to be starting or are starting and thriving in Canada. The goal of our Road to 1,000 Doctors is to help 1,000 physicians come to Canada and practice so that they can help 1 million Canadians at least through our public system. In our adventures and road to finding these wonderful people, we're going to be interviewing really neat guests, people that can add a lot of value to physicians, to clinics, to people that are trying to figure out what to do and where to go next. And then when they get here, how to be able to live what our first guest calls a rich and fulfilling life. So it's a pleasure and really like just a privilege to have somebody who's helped to inspire this podcast, Mr. Saad Nadeem, on from your rich fulfilling life, his own podcast. And so Saad, please, first of all, welcome. And second of all, can you introduce yourself a little bit more fully?
Of course. Thank you, Ross, for that wonderful introduction. I'm glad this is, kicking off because I think this is a wonderful way to obviously help the people who are actually looking for it. And Canada is obviously a great place to be for these physicians. But yeah, like you mentioned, I'm Saad Nadeem, a CEO at RFL Wealth, and we give internationally trained physicians the financial peace that they deserve. And just happy to be here.
That's amazing. What's inspired me the most about what you do and how your business operates is that you don't just focus on your products, you really focus on the why it is that people would want to work with you and why it is that it makes sense that people would come to Canada and practice. Tell us for a minute or two about what inspired you to focus on working with and partnering with internationally trained physicians and why you focus on their rich, fulfilling life.
I can definitely answer the second part to that question, the rich, fulfilling life one. The first one is, I just feel like it's God's plan or is a bit mixed with a bit of luck. What I did back in the day, probably about 8-9 years ago to start my business, is I door knocked every single clinic across the entire city of Toronto. Every clinic. I went up and down, starting from Milton, 401, James Snow Parkway, going north and south. And I would just invite physicians out to a dinner seminar in the area. And then I just kind of went all the way through Mississauga and Brampton and Etobicoke and, the works. And when I did a reflection of, who were the people who wanted to work with me, every single one of them was an internationally trained physician. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there might be something here. And then I had this crazy idea to build an entire company around it. And now I'm so glad that we did that because like I said, there's no master plan. I was not afraid of the hard work, and then just kind of reflecting and evaluating in terms of, what the results of that work was. So that's how it came to internationally trained physicians. But the rich, fulfilling life one is the one that I can really attest to. And I think it really just stems from the fact that I guess I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I made quite a lot of money when I was quite young. And I thought, growing up from this middle class family and what movies and, TV shows teach you is like, oh yeah, if you have money, you'll be happy. And then you make your first 100 grand and it didn't bring you any more happiness. And then you make your 500,000, it didn't bring you anything more. And then you kind of just go up the ladder and make 1 million. And I'm like, oh, okay. So none of this is actually, doing that for me. And I found my fulfillment in a lot of other areas along the way. My family, religion, focusing on your health. So we actually at Rich Fulfilling Life call it the 5 buckets. So you want to focus on your mind, your body, your soul, your work, and your family, and not particularly in that order, but it's the 5 buckets. And you can't just be focusing on one bucket, leaving the other buckets out, the buckets going red. And that's where problems happen. That's where a lot of rich people commit suicide, so, and again, it took that chance that I thought that people would want to live a rich, fulfilling life. And I'm so glad we did that as well, because now our clients don't tell us that they want a financial plan or a retirement plan or this plan or that plan. They tell me, Saad, I want to live a rich, fulfilling life. And then, we're able to build plans for them catered around what is rich, fulfilling life to you, because your rich, fulfilling life is different than your own siblings and your spouse or your parents or your best friends. So it's really important that we ask those types of questions and then build a custom plan exactly for what you're looking for in your life. And a lot of times that has nothing to do with money. So.
Awesome. A few things that really kind of stick with me here. The first one is, grinding it out, knocking on every door in the city. That
Yeah.
just, that, that speaks to me as an entrepreneur in a way that I think, anybody who's had to figure this out would know. And I know that your clients, like so many physicians who come from abroad, that's what it takes. It takes just a ton of grinding, a ton of studying, a ton of working, a ton of pushing to figure out where you're going to fit, how it's going to work, how
Yeah.
things are going to come together. It's very cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember a lot of crying days, you know, a lot of ripped Payless shoes and, and, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything at all. And I'm so glad I did those because, I know what's gotten here. And like you said, a lot of my clients start off as security guards, as security guards, taxi drivers, janitors. And that's what they were doing when they came to Canada as physicians. Then they had to do their licensing and everything. And then they became physicians. So I think that story obviously, or it may resonate with many other internationally trained physicians as well. Yep. Yep. Mhm. So recently I actually had a couple conversations. One of them was on a podcast and they talk about how when, these internationally trained physicians come to Canada, it's not just about finally your license. They are now having to learn a brand new system, in their 40s, most likely. So they probably, a lot of them come from the UK. So they're familiar with the NHS, the National Health Plan there in the UK, or then in the US is very, very more like entrepreneurial. And then in Canada had this own like take to it. So a lot of times, what they say is, it took me a few years just to understand how to work the practice, so I had to build good habits in the sense that, okay, so in Canada, this is how we do things. I know I'm used to what I used to do back home in the UK or thing, but that doesn't apply here. And it costs them, sometimes it costs them quite a bit of money and just to understand those things. Because I was speaking to another one, he is a pediatrician and he thought he was going to make 70 grand or, whatever for the month. And he's like, oh, all my billing was wrong and OHIP was wrong and this was wrong and that was wrong. And now all of a sudden he's making like maybe half of that. So I think a lot, and that's the weird thing about how the healthcare system works in Canada. To us as a Canadian citizen, they are, they're like government employees or provided by the government because we have free healthcare. But for them on the other side, they're not government employees. They're actually independent, self-employed individuals, who are just able to bill the government for revenue. So it's a completely different mindset in terms of what we see over here. And I think that's why we need to change this up. This is just not good. One of my physicians was actually telling me, oh yeah, we have free healthcare in Canada if you don't use it, you know, and just because we need more physicians to help Canadians, we are just it's not good. So, a lot of these people, and it does take them time. So it's not just about bringing them over to Canada, but it's also giving them the time and the patience that's going to need to fully integrate them into the Canadian healthcare system to, kind of help all the Canadians out.
So with your habits specifically, when your clients are totally managing your clients, and how you do that being one example.
Mhm.
How do you live your good habit goals? How do you make sure that you keep your habits good and your habits clean in your life and in your business? And do you ever talk to your clients about like, the importance of good hygiene with their bills and good hygiene with their claims?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, so I mean, on our side, everything is essentially automated, right? So we have quite a bit of staff. We have a staff of 7 people. And, so from that standpoint, everything is taken care of. So my job is very specific. So everybody only has one job. So not many people, except me, really has more than one hat. So when it comes to the planning, when it comes to the operations and the admin and, et cetera, everything is taken care of. So, that was obviously, it took a while to understand that. And those are some of the things that I tell my clients that, this is how, if you try to do some of these, like, incorporate these habits into your practice, it might actually help you. So even a few of them is, getting maybe one more assistant, maybe when you don't feel like you actually need to, because that one more assistant is actually going to save you a lot of money. Another one I can think of is he was building his new desk for his clinic And it took him like an hour and a half to build it before him and I got on the phone. And I'm like, oh, is it finished now? He's like, no, 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 not yet. It's going to take me probably another half an hour, 40 minutes now. I'm like, okay, so you just spent about 3 hours building this desk when you could have seen patients, and seeing patients would have got you way more money. But instead, you chose to not pay IKEA or whatever, like $30 to build it for you. And now you know, how much money do you make? You're like 600 grand. Okay, 600 grand is about $400 an hour. So you spend $1,200 an hour to save $30. So how does that make sense? So, you know, it's kind of just having these conversations with them and kind of just, and having the confidence to kind of question them, right? Like, because, and I think that just comes with like tenure in the industry, because you may be a physician, but I'm way better at this than you, right? So I know that, but I'm not complaining to be a better doctor than you, you know? So you're an amazing doctor. I understand that. But when it comes to money, when it comes to finances, I am the guy, and I know that. And so that's how we kind of question them and like, hey, hey, like, have you tried doing it this way? How does your billing work? How does your revenue work? How do your expenses work? Like, you know, and just kind of sharing ideas. They obviously make their own decision, but I think it's my fiduciary duty to have those difficult conversations sometimes when it has nothing to do with, you know, maybe what I'm actually there for, which is the planning part.
Totally. It's funny when you see the two different mindsets of professionals. Doctors for sure, you know, international, foreign trained, grew up in Ontario and went to, you know, local medical school or whatever.
Hmm.
Minds people really is it's one of two or three, you know, at least in my experience, wherever they've come from, the UK, Kingston, you know, and anywhere in between. The ones who look at it and they say, you know what, we're not interested in paying more expenses. We're taking a call, you know, in the car where we have 7 minutes because we're running between three different jobs and the same. And we
Hmm.
don't want to spend more than, you know, X dollars on any service, notwithstanding the fact that the service can actually make them more money. And then there's the doctor who's like, wait a minute, you know, if I look at this a little differently, the opportunity here is for me to grow my business or be a little bit more efficient. I'm totally open to figuring out how I can bring in more and do less.
Yep.
I remember I had a call once with a with a specialist. He had, I think it was 10 minutes in his car when he was running and he was late between two. He was opening three clinics on the heels of one that was already very busy. Wasn't exactly sure of his numbers and was asking us, you know, like could we reduce our rates on our services, you know, specifically related to our claims management. He just didn't feel like it was fair that we charged so much. And I said to him, the way that we work is if we don't make you more money net of our fees, you don't pay, right? Like
Hmm.
there's only upside here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. He's like, I just feel like you're charging too much. And I feel like, you know, you can have my business, but you can have it for a quarter of what you're asking for.
Hmm.
And I'm just not prepared to pay for the service. And so what ended up happening? Obviously we didn't work together.
Yep.
Is it a loss for us? Yeah, maybe, but there's, you know, for another five, as you know, right? You knock on doors and you have friends, you know,
Yep.
another five willing to take your time and work with you. But the opportunity cost to him is unknown. You know, we've saved on the, like with the claims specifically, we've ended up saving, you know, docs dozens of hours a month and adding, you know, I'm thinking of one doctor, right, one of our first clients, $300,000 a year to his top line. Fascinating, you know, to work with professionals and knowing that you've worked with a number of doctors and, you know, I guess we both have that experience, right? Very different people, but very similar sets of mindsets. How have you found, I guess I'll start by sharing a little bit. You know, what I've found is, and what we tell docs in the practice that are starting with us is that they really not only have to have strong hygiene, but they have to think about their professional services more and more as a business and not just as a practice. If they think about the practice as a business, they can actually help a lot more patients more efficiently and more effectively because they put the right types of, you know, solutions in place to be able to, you know, like we have in our business, to be able to automate the complicated things, to be able to streamline for sanity, right? And streamline for health and effectiveness. And sometimes there's a cost to it, but ultimately at the end of the day, the bottom line number is really what counts. The other thing that's kind of funny that I'll mention, and I'd love you to comment, just knowing your background and knowing how focused you are on finance. I often tell our clients, the physicians, banks never ever bank with a percentage sign. They only charge interest with a percentage sign. But at the end of the day, it's the dollar sign that counts to the bank. It's the dollar sign that counts for the investor. As you know very well, you have to explain to all professionals, you know, and doctors for sure, international and domestic, the nuanced importance between and difference between a percentage sign and a dollar sign, right? A
Mhm.
lot of physicians look at the percentage number. What's my overhead cost? How much does this cost me relative to revenue, right? And they don't look at how much they make in cash, how much they make in money at the end of the day, at the end of the
Mhm.
list. Their net of their overheads and net of their fees. I often tell people when they were working, when they were working with us at the clinic, and then today, the percentage number is actually a lot less important than how much you make. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how much other people make. You should actually want other people to make a ton with you, because the more money they make, the more money you're going to make, and the more they're going to want you to make more money. And to me, it seems very straightforward. You can't bank on a percentage sign. You can bank on a dollar sign. And I'm wondering, in your experiences, how do you explain that to your clients? And do you find them getting, well, let me stop there. How do you explain that to your clients?
So the interesting part about, charging fees for whatever it is that you're doing to help somebody is you, I think the first thing is for you to understand that not everybody is your client. Okay. So let's start there. Not everybody, not 100% people that you're going to meet are going to be your clients. And because it's for that same fact, what you just said is that a lot of them are just running it as a practice rather than it as a business. So if you're running it as a practice, that's where that's where you hear things like, oh, I don't care about money, or I don't care about this. I just want to help my patients, or, and that's where those types of conversations come into place where it's like, well, okay, how much is this going to cost me? Well, no, I don't want to pay that, but because they don't realize how much they're actually going to make, right? So the first thing is to just make your life much simpler and say, I wouldn't want to work with people who actually, don't want to improve themselves. There's no way I can want your success more than you want your own success. So, okay, great. So, let's say like quite a few people are out of the list now. The second people now that are on the list now are going to at least appreciate the fact that fine, you have to pay some sort of a fee, but this is how much you're going to get out of it. And what we've done in our practice is we had a lot of failure, obviously, to figure that out. But one of the interesting things that I did because the thing is, at the end of the day, I know our clients need my service, and I just need to figure out how we can help them understand that. So one of the ideas that I did was I started getting exit interviews from all the physicians who said no to us. Like, why? Get to the bottom of it. Like, I know, and because they'll always tell me like, Saad, I really like you and this and that, but I don't want to do business with you. Okay, let's do a half an hour conversation, and I just want to know why, right? And I think if you do things like that, that's where you're really going to come across, because we have a different brain. We're working the problem through a different perspective. They're thinking about the problem from a different perspective. And what may make sense to us may not necessarily make sense to them. And after a lot of exit interviews is when I realized this is the way we actually position our service offering. This is the way we actually, talk about the fees and all of that. And now we have you know, there's a pretty high chance, probably more than 90% chance if I meet a physician, that person's going to become a client. And because we've, like, kind of perfected those. And for those people, like to your question, I think it's just asking them like, hey, maybe it might even make sense to not even talk about the percentage upfront, like, hey, like it may make sense to just talk about like, hey, if we work with you, we're pretty much say like, you probably can't give guarantees or whatever, but you can say like, hey, if we work with you, your bottom line or your top line will increase by X amount, and kind of, or probably maybe the way I would, the more I'm going through the problem, I would probably give them the net amount that the business will increase with, and not even share with them what, the actual fee that we cost, because that doesn't apply to them. Right. So what does it cost? What does their revenue increase with? And I think that will probably appeal to them rather than, okay, well, I'm going to increase your monthly billing by 30,000. And then I'm going to take whatever, 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever. And now you're going to make 20, so because people are more loss averse than they are in that now they don't want to see it because they might. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have with physicians as well, right? Physicians feel that whenever somebody comes to ask them for money, it's literally them giving them money because they are the ones seeing the patients. So for them, in their mind, it's like, why am I going to give you a haircut for something I worked my butt off for like 20 years and 10 years or whatever? And so why am I going to give you this now? You're not the doctor. I'm the doctor. You know what I mean? it's a weird dynamic, but I think there's definitely value there in terms of, what you guys are offering. We'll probably just have to figure it out, in terms of how their brain works and how they would like to see it.
Well, do you ever have doctors when you're starting to meet with and advise physicians on what to do and how to pick a clinic, pick a hospital? If
Mhm,
you're better off in an AFP model where there's shadow billing, you're going around
mhm.
like and they come and they ask you, like, how would you adjudicate a clinic or an opportunity? Like any business opportunity as a professional. Well, what would we say to them?
That's really not my place to be, and that's the thing, like, and maybe that's why this whole thing works because we really don't care about the money aspect. That's your problem. That's not my problem. I can tell you the pros and cons if you go fee for service or a capitation model, or you go to a hospital, or you go to a private clinic. I can talk about those. But at the end of the day, they kind of make their own decision in terms of how they want to do that. And whatever they decide to do is the numbers we're working with. Because if you tell me like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm only going to work 2 days a week and make like 15 grand a month, great, you're not retiring. you know and it's really simple, right? So I don't care. So and that's what for them to figure out, like, hey, I'm going to do this. I do direct them when I feel like they're overworking, and I tell them like, hey, if you I just want to let you know that if you work a bit less, you'll still be able to do everything you want to do for yourself and your family, but I don't actually need you to do that. But if you don't make that type of money, then like, obviously you're making what you're making. And so for us, the North Compass is always, how do we help this person live a rich, fulfilling life? And if for them a rich, fulfilling life is working twice a week and they're going to spend the rest of the time doing whatever they want to do, then amazing. We may just not be able to help you actually do the retirement stuff. If, again, I'm assuming now part of your rich, fulfilling life is actually being able to retire. Maybe it's not.
I think this is a part of our chat that I'm been looking most forward to. I think that if there's you could talk about financial products. I say this to you as a friend, right? You can talk about financial products all day long. There's a ton we could learn. I'm totally fascinated to know your thoughts on, and like really like on an independent pension plan and what I should be tucking in there and the
Yep.
importance of being able to build an important, really well asset backed passive income stream with my available credit. Let's talk about that later. We could talk about it all day long. But the thing is, really, for all of the people that we have as clients between the two of us, and for everybody who's listening to this podcast, one of the most important messages that I think you can share better than most is the philosophy of giving more to get more. The more that
Mhm.
you give your fund, your advisor, the more information, the more money, the more opportunity, the more you can get out of your, in your case, your rich, fulfilling life. You can get a real return when you make a real investment. And, we don't have consulting as part of our value proposition on Physicians First Financial's site. However, when people call and they ask, what does that clarity concierge mean? So there's a dashboard. So what? We explain to them, that also comes with a little bit of mentorship. That also comes with a little bit of being able to help you figure out what to do with this. What do you do with the information and how do you make it meaningful? And we spend time with people on that. Do we get paid for it directly? No. But when we give them the ability to see things the way that we do as a management team, as I would say like a reasonably accomplished group of people, it helps. It changes their lives. And what does it take from a lifetime of experience? Yes. And then another 20 minutes.
Yep.
And I often tell people that are willing to listen, and doctors, there's two types of professionals, right? The ones who really give it everything, the ones who give bedside manner training, like everything, the ones
Yep.
who give training everything, the ones who give billing everything, even in a shadow billing scenario. And the ones who end up giving more to their practice, giving more to their family, giving more to the community, giving more to the people that matter to them, right? The patients, especially. The more they get, the more opportunities that come, the more the ability to be able to better manage everything else in their practice and their life, the more money that can come, the more opportunities that come to be able to learn and grow. And the growth mindset versus limited mindset professional, is something that I often talk about. As someone who I know who really believes in giving more to get more, how do you impart that into your client base? How do you see it? And what is the trajectory and difference long term between the people who give more to versus the people who try to figure out how to just do minimum effort and maximize their return.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if you know Zig Ziglar from back in the day, but he once said that if you want everything, if you give people everything that they want, you can get what you want. Right. And I think it's really just starts from that quote that sat on my desk for many years when I was in my door knocking days. And and you're right. Like a lot of the things that we would do, we don't actually get paid out on. Right. A lot of time I feel like I'm a motivational speaker. I'm just speaking to them and just telling them, and because I know how they are. I know I've met their spouses, I know their kids. Like we really take this rich, fulfilling life thing quite seriously. And that's why I keep saying our North Compass, it's not revenue. Our North Compass is, did you help them live a rich, fulfilling life? And if we help people live a rich, fulfilling life, that may end up resulting in good revenue for the company. But our driving force is not actual revenue, and that's the difference. So that I think speaks volume just from a service. That speaks volumes, like even some small little thing that we did recently, like one of our clients, his child graduated middle school, he was going to high school. So we sent them a little book and addressed to the child's name, not even the parent. Like, so he called me, he's like, thank you so much. That was so thoughtful. This is the first letter that he actually ever got in his life. you know, Nobody's ever addressed my, 9-year-old kid or, whatever, an actual male. So he was so excited and, those, and thank you. And the thing is just kind of like those types of things. So I mean, we don't, maybe to our detriment, maybe we don't care about it, like, too much in terms of what's happening on that point. But I just truly find like it just does wonders. Like, I believe in karma. I'm sure if all of this, we do this and then this may result in more business for us or an introduction or referral for us. But again, that's not even the goal. If that doesn't happen, it's not like, oh man, I sent him this book. I can't believe he didn't do this. Like, I really don't care, because I'm living my rich, fulfilling life. And if I'm going to be here for the next 20, 30 years or so, minimum in this industry, I don't think I'm ever going to retire. But if I'm here, then did we make a pretty good impact? Did we, were we kind to people? Were we nice to people? Did we go out of our way to really help people? Because I always remember when somebody goes out of their way to help me, I can pinpoint you the hotels I've stayed, the service I've received, the restaurants I've gone to, the service I've received, the good mechanics from the bad mechanics, the good salespeople from the bad salespeople. So we meet people all the time, and for most part, and I think this is probably where I like to end off now, is for the most part, bad people feel or believe that the sale ends when the other person signs on the dotted line. Good salespeople know that the sale really begins when the person signs on the dotted line, because that's where you're going to get referrals and introductions for the rest of your thing. Like my wife bought a $200,000 car recently, zero service after she signed on the dotted line. And I'm like, that just sucks, because you know how many people I could have referred to you guys and what I could have done? It's like absolutely nothing, because the salesperson, like, I'm sure he made some great money on that, but like that's the tip of the iceberg, right? And that's where I realized, like, I'm not interested in the tip of the iceberg. I'm really interested in going so well and beyond than what you've ever imagined, where if it ever comes down to rich, fulfilling life or planning or retirement planning or taxes, we get introductory calls every week, every week. And because I take that part of the business so seriously, even when our staff calls somebody, the last question they'll ask them, is there anything else we can do to help you live a rich, fulfilling life today? And they're like, who's asking you that question? Can you imagine? You'll be like, oh, snap. One of our clients said their clinic, water pipes broke, had to do a whole construction, move to another place and this and that. Like, it was crazy for like 3 months, 4 months. When it finally finished, I'm like, hey, is it fine? Because the spouse was dealing with though. I'm like, hey, is it all done now? Like, can you finally take a breathe and relax? She's like, yeah, like, I cannot wait. This is the final week, the final checkpoint, the assessment from the consulting guys, construction guys is on Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm just going to be off and I can't wait. We sent her a spa day for Thursday. She was like, what are you guys doing there? Like I was not expecting this at all. I'm like, yeah, for the last 4 months, we couldn't get a hold of you. Like, we needed some stuff and paper sign, this and that. We left it, whatever. But I know why. And after that whole thing happened, I'm like, no problem. Here's a spa day. Get your nails done, get your massage done, get your whatever need pedicure, and and take a time day to yourself, and then we'll figure it out later. And that's literally what happened. So I definitely believe in giving more and getting more.
And with the doctors that you have as clients, do you notice like a difference in how they invest or in what they invest with you as a result, like when they have that same philosophy?
We get everything. I we do everything for our clients. People talk about like wallet share and things like that. I believe we have probably like 99% of wallet share of every single one of our clients. We get all the investments, we get all the insurance, we get all the retirement stuff, we get all the children education stuff, we get all the tax planning stuff, we get all the estate planning stuff. We do everything. And I think that's probably a testament to, giving more and getting more.
Yeah, no, for sure. For us, we do everything we can for physicians within the realm of normalcy. What we
Hmm.
find, and I'm sure you find this too, is initial surprise, right?
Hmm.
When we start talking to doctors or the clinics, actually more than the doctors, they're always surprised to hear that we're happy to help. One of
Yeah.
them, one of the businesses we work with had a technology issue. Our CTO was like, you know what, this is an interesting problem. Let me look at it and see. We'd probably save them $20,000 in development fees because he's just happy to help and see how we can do.
Yeah.
I shared with the owner of the clinic, some reference material, actually all Studer Group related. And the Studer Group book, Hardwiring Excellence, changed my life. Was recommendation from a very old friend of mine's dad who ran a chain of clinics in Ottawa for successfully for years. Brent Studer's the author. Hardwiring Excellence was the book. A lot about life and a lot about management in there, and physician and healthcare environment specifically. So I passed the name of the book and some YouTube videos from the group to him. And it's literally like me. It forever changed the way that he's going to be working with his team and looking at how to manage and inspire people to do, to do well personally by doing good in the practice and for the community.
So for sure.
Yeah, big difference, big help. What we're talking about here are the right tools for really effective, professional management, and then investing and dealing with what happens to the results of that. Right? If you get out what if you get what you give, and you really are determined to be focused on, if you're flying the plane by looking out the window, but you know that you've got the instruments around you, it makes navigating and flying and certainly, certainly touching ground a lot easier. In our experience, we've got a tool called Clarity Concierge. It connects to medical record systems. It connects to, all of the key components of a practice. And then it basically allows any clinic manager and any stakeholder, any doctor, any manager of the clinic, the owners of the clinic, et cetera, to be able to see in real time exactly what their bookings are like, exactly what projected revenue is like, exactly what their expenses may be like, depending on how we're able to structure, the estimated, claims per encounter type. And then we can discount, like hard costs and the costs of being able to staff a room if it's a surgical center. What it gives them the ability to be able to more clearly see what's going on across a number of different systems. And then from there, really get a good, quick visual sense of what goes on in their business. And when they have that ability to see clearly, they're able to really meaningfully move with precision, right? And in medicine, it would be called precision medicine. The idea of being able to actually know what's going on with a patient, see exactly what's happening, and not have to practice with a guess, but aim right at whatever it is that is the problem and focus the solution very, very clearly there. With that, I guess really with all of that said, we got tools in our tool belt that allow people to understand where they want to go, understand where they're coming from and where they're starting, help them see what the interim steps are. In our world, I know that's called milestones. In the physician world, it's all part of the journey, to be able to get to that destination. And we help them to track it and help them to make sure that they can see exactly what they need to do and how they need to get there. In your world, and when you're working with physicians, what advice could you give them about setting for their own, for their own investing in their own lifestyle that's along the same way with your clients to be able to help them structure their lives and have the clarity that they need to feel comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, and the thing, like, what you guys are doing there is like Absolutely awesome, right? Like, I mean, it will literally help them run their practice as like a business and start seeing some of the tools that we probably use on our side. I know I love my tools and everything I see, the dashboards and the revenue and the pipeline, all of that stuff. And it just gives me the clarity that I need so I can 100% see, what it is that you guys are doing for them. So I think that's pretty awesome. But for us, I mean, in terms of what we're doing for our physicians, international trained physicians, is essentially we give them a tax efficient retirement plan and a tax efficient children's education plan without selling them any investments or insurance within 4 weeks. And that's the key because we're not actually selling anything to our clients, investments or insurance. They may, if they like to, they can choose to do that, take that relationship there if they'd like. But the main reason that they work with us is so we can help them build a financial life plan, as we call it, to help them live a rich, fulfilling life. And that's pretty much it. So, a story that we had recently is he was actually on one of my other podcasts. He's a physician in Ottawa, came here from the UK, been practicing in Canada for about 9 years and has worked 6 minimum days, probably 6.5 days for the last 9 years, just nonstop. He's tried working with a bank. He tried working with that other MD company. I'm not going to say the full name but just failing. And so why, after all of that, he chose RFL as the place to be. And the reason for that is because for the first time in his life, he actually had the clarity that he was looking for. He actually, with confidence, knew that I'm going to be okay. My spouse is going to be okay. My kids are going to be okay. And I can actually, just and try to breathe a bit. So the greatest compliment that he actually gave, obviously unknowingly, was when I met with him about a month ago now. He told me that, Saad, for the first time in my career in Canada, we are actually shutting down the clinic on Saturday and Sunday for the rest of the summer so I can go spend that time with my kids for the first time in 9 years. Imagine that, 9 years. And the reason for that, he's like, so because you've clearly told me and shown me that I actually don't need that extra day and a half of money. I can actually just choose to earn a bit less, still accomplish all my goals, still be okay for me and my future and everything. So what am I really going to do with that extra $3 million by the time I turn 60, 65? Am I going to really enjoy that, or am I going to enjoy that time right now with my kids when my kids still want to spend some time with me? So yeah, I mean, that's really what what it's all about. We want to give them a financial life plan, the most tax efficient retirement plan, the most way to send your kids to school without selling them any investments or insurance. And yeah, so you can get the financial peace that you deserve.
Well, I'm totally guessing that you're not going to point into the direction of a fancy car dealership. That's for sure. Just
Yeah.
nuts and bolts this for me for a minute. Help me
Yeah.
just understand really, really clearly. So, physician, UK based, living in Ottawa. By the way, Golden Palace, one of the best North American Chinese restaurants, I
Mhm.
think, in the world. Place is fantastic. It's on Carling Avenue.
Okay.
That's the biggest endorsement, a compliment, a referral I think I can give on this
Yeah.
podcast. I like literally grew up there. It's a wonderful. That's another story. It's for a
Sure.
whole other episode. Like, quite honestly, it's so expensive. I think that you'd end up blowing like a good 60% of your OHIP revenue if
Mhm.
you're on origin there on 3 dinners. But let's leave that.
Yeah.
Nuts and bolts. Guy's working 6 days a week. He
Mhm.
is in Ottawa. Cost of living is definitely a lot more expensive. Help me understand, like, what did you actually tell him? Like, what, if there were two or three monumental changes that he's making in his investments, what did you look at and think made sense?
So essentially for us, it starts from, like back to the planning, right? So here's the thing, right? So he's making more than the $500,000 small business deduction net income, which means he's already at the 26% general tax rate. The passive income that, was being generated from just his portfolio, he has quite a bit of money he's already saved. So the US dividend is, I think is an effective tax rate of, I think about like 58%. The Canadian interest income and all of that is an effective tax rate of about 53%. So, so nothing to do with investment. So for us, it's all about, okay, let's get the planning right by reducing your taxes every single place, because now our investments will do what the investments are going to do anyways, but at least we're not going to lose the money through the CRA in all places. So we set up a pension for him through a PPP. We set up a whole life policy for him through the corporation. We set up corporate class investments for him through his MPC. So, even there's further no income. All of a sudden, we just reduced his income, passive income inside his MPC to pretty much zero. So he was losing roughly 25,000 a year in just taxes, just on passive income. Okay, well, that 25,000 is not going to compound for life. Okay, so, we're already going to be way better off. Then we also figure out what's the best way to pay him. Is it should be salary or dividend? So based on his income, salary made a bit more sense. Okay, so now what are we going to do for the kids? Okay, so this is how the kids come in. What do you want? What do you want them to do? Well, I want them to go to school for 4 years, and I need to save them at least 20 grand a year. Okay, well, RESPs itself are not going to be enough. Okay, so now what do we do? Okay, so now we can do RESPs. Maybe we do like a child whole life policy, or maybe we do an interest non-registered account under their name. So, that all those capital gains are taxed under their name whenever they are over 18. So again, reduce tax in every single possible place. And then the investment returns are going to do what they're going to do. But I feel like we're in a position way better than the banks and MD management, whatever, because we have contracts set up with private equity firms, exempt market funds. We have investments that we can take in agriculture land that have given a rate of return of like 16% over the last like 5 years. What about public storage units? What about private companies just before they go public? Right. So because we're independent, our main focus is to help you live a rich, fulfilling life. So every single aspect of our business is super. We have contracts with everybody set up to make sure that whatever you are interested in, we can actually set up. That's why we don't never really talk about the investments or the insurance, because it's not that important. The biggest problem they have is tax. So if I can reduce your tax by a whole lot, then that same 8, 9%, 10% that we were going to get is going way further, because I also saved you probably another 2, 3, 4 percentage points on the taxes. So my rate of return is way higher than yours all the time, because my rate of return on the tax side is guaranteed, right? You're going to see not cutting CRA a check for that extra 25,000 this year, and that you've been used to selling for the last 9 years, right? So yeah, that's where I really get pumped up, I think.
Thanks, man. When you and I first connected a number of months ago, I had a chance to have some really cool conversations, and I learned a ton from you very quickly. You're very, very, very generous with knowledge and wisdom and experience, like from our first encounter. You shared a couple of books with me, and I'm wondering, like, just for our audience, what books do you give as gifts the most, or what are the most like significant books that you would give as gifts for either finance for doctors or for personal growth for doctors?
My personal favorite finance book at the moment that, I mean, anybody who asks that question is going to get is Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. So I think that's a really good book, and it has nothing to do with investments. It's really literally just the psychology of money. And I think it's important. Like, you're not saying anything new. Like, I mean, there's not too many original thoughts left, but what he's done is he's done a really good job of taking all the older books that I've read, from the 80s and the 70s, and kind of compacted that information into this book. So it's really, really important, because I think the biggest problem we have is most of us grew up in middle-class families. So we all have a middle-class mentality on how money works. That's not how money works. So you have to unlearn everything your parents probably taught you on how money works, and actually understand how the wealthy actually believe how the money works. So that's a financial one that I would 100% think. On a personal level, I love Guns, Germs, and Steel. So yeah, it is an amazing book. So I'm like, it's a pretty large book, but the Guns, Germs, and Steel pretty much talks about why is it that the European countries became the first world countries? Why didn't any other country? Is it because they were smarter? No. So why is it why did that particular France and Britain and all of these countries became who they were? And you'll read it and you're like, oh, it's not because they're smarter than the rest of the world, or not because, they were stronger or this and that, because you can't prove that. But it's a really, really good book. I think he's an anthropologist who talks about, and then it'll start to make sense how the world is still shaped up today in 2023 based on how, just resources. So yeah.
Cool. Help me understand some of your most formative beliefs and behaviors and habits in the last number of years. Like, you as a, like, philosophically, you're a big believer in giving more, to get more.
Mhm.
Help me understand some of the other ones, like the most transformative beliefs and habits, the stuff that you've realized you needed to change or do differently, and then you've done it, and life has just become and practice and business has just become so much, and family, everything has become so much richer through it.
Slow down. Everybody in the world is in a hurry to get to where they want to get to. And I'm in absolute no hurry to get to where I want to get to now. I was obviously in one of them as well. But there's a reason the turtle wins the race. There's a reason for that. It's a story that we are told when we were children. But you don't think that, because whenever somebody in my life told me to slow down, or like an older, like a 60-year-old or something, or, man, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm trying to get to where I had to get to like yesterday. And like, you'll notice that everybody around you is just never time for anything, never, you're in a rush. You like you said, that 7-minute call between like the killing, because the guy has 3 jobs and this is happening and that's happening. And I can only give you 5 minutes. So are you really even putting the right time of thought to understand what Ross is actually saying to you and how he can actually help you? If you only have like 7 minutes, probably not. Right. And that's the biggest thing for us. Like, so slow down. The turtle always wins. And the more I've slowed, the more money we've made, the better growth we've had, the better relationships I've been able to form. My relationship with my kids is amazing. My friends is pretty decent, and my family members is okay, and it's because you just slow down, and just, it's okay to take a little breather, and you'll realize, when I was running that fast, I made X. When I slowed down and did half the work, I made 3 times that. Okay, I should probably slow down even more. So now I'm like looking to move like as like, almost like in slow mo now. So I just see how wonderful it's done for me.
It's amazing. One one piece of advice I would share to a physician that was going to be moving to a new country, starting up, or that is here in Canada and driving a taxi or working as a security guard, and on their journey to start to practice, and on the cusp of getting things going.
It is extremely difficult until it's not. And I think that's what you probably have to say. I honestly believe, because I speak to physicians from all over the world, I honestly believe Canada is probably one of the best places to be a physician in. Hands down. Hands down. So does that mean it's going to be a bit difficult? Yes. Are you going to have to go through some, you know, potholes and speed bumps and some bad days? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, it's completely worth it. 100% worth it. And I hope that many physicians do come to Canada.
So, Saad, we're coming up to our time. This has been so cool and so interesting. I suppose we could have taken 45 minutes and chatted about the nuts and bolts of how to focus on tax strategy and minimization efforts. But you know what? If people want to know more about that, and I'm sure they will, what's the best way to reach you? Like, how can people follow up with you?
You can just go to our website, rflwealth.ca, and it says speak to an advisor on the top right. And then multiple times show at the website. You can just click there and just book a free consultation with us. And we'll kind of go from there.
It's awesome. Awesome. We touched on so many important things that, I'll be definitely thinking, reflecting. What's interesting is, your business is a success, a lot like a lot of your clients' business is a success, because, you've set yourself up with the right tools, and you really do focus on making sure that in all of the different buckets that you focus on in your business, that your clients have the right tools. And I think we both agree, you do need the right tools to be able to succeed. A surgeon can't operate without their equipment. The room's got to be clean. The place has to be set. There's got to be lights. There's probably a scalpel. There's
Mm.
stuff that people need in order to be able to do their job. Giving more and getting more. Clean notes, clean claims, showing up 5 minutes early, actually making sure that you're in the room and you start a list. And everything that goes beyond that helps to be able to make sure that you actually get everything that you put into your practice. And when you get everything out, which we also talk about, the importance of the dollar sign instead of the percentage sign, that net number, you can
Mhm.
you can apply the same type of discipline and the same type give first mentality to be able to get disproportionately more. We talk about the concept of viewing a practice as a business and not just as a profession, and the importance there of making sure that, if you have the right tools and you pay what's needed to be able to have the right components, the right people in place, you end up being able to get much more for yourself, and being able to do much more and focus on helping more people with a lot more mental clarity. And the last thing you spoke to, which was great and totally fits into our podcast, is that
Mhm.
you've seen everything. You've spoken to doctors from all over the world, and Canada is the best place for doctors. That was such a cool thing to hear. I've traveled and I've recruited doctors from a number of different countries, but knowing that you're connecting with people organically, I guess really, I'd like to conclude with just that one question. Why do you think Canada is the best place for doctors who are looking to move?
It gives them the independence that I think a lot of them are looking for in terms of their own practice. But secondly, and I believe more importantly, if you come here and you work with the right people, the decision to move to Canada will change your family's trajectory for the rest of your life. And I've seen it. People are, they're like, that can't be my net worth. And that can't be where I'm going to end up for my kids. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually true. So you focus on being the best doctor that you can be, and we will make sure that your money goes as far as it possibly can without paying, with paying the least amount of taxes in your life, in your retirement, and essentially on your estate before it goes to your kids. So yeah, I believe it's the best place for that reason.
Just absolutely
Mm.
fantastic. So thanks so much for being on the podcast. This was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ross, for having me here. Like, this was an amazing conversation. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing, helping $1,000 to get to Canada, because like we need more doctors in Canada, before this free healthcare becomes pretty much like just a whatever. So yeah, keep doing your, what you guys are doing there at PFF. And I think best of luck to you guys. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. And to everybody listening, thanks so much for your trust and thanks so much for your time. Two things that are hugely valuable to Saad, to me, and the entire Physicians First team. Have a great day, and thank you again.
Thank you.